Ragnar Prime skills have been officially shown in Rise of Kingdoms, and today I'm going to go over all of his skills. Everything about his kit I'm going to go over, and he is one very unique commander who has changed the infantry meta. I don't know for the good, I don't know for the worse. He has just changed the infantry meta. He's changed what we thought infantry would be doing, because a little spoiler alert, once we get into his skills, he is not an expedition commander. So if you're interested in Ragnar Lodbrok and the prime version of him, his new skills and his crazy kit, you want to stick around till the end of the video. Now, let's start off today's video by going over Ragnar's skills, and we'll start off with his active skill, Raven's Call. It's an AoE skill, it's got a rage cost of 1000, and really it's just pure damage, but it's a lot of it. He's going to deal damage to 3 enemy troops in a fan-shaped area by 2000 damage factor. Of course, every single additional target will reduce the damage by 15%, but on top of this, the current target of this commander's troop will take an additional 300 damage for the next 2 seconds. Keep that in mind, this 300 additional damage will not be affected by that 15% reduction, because when it comes down to using an AoE skill, it will only affect the people who are hit by AoE. So this 600 damage will not be reduced at all. It is 600 damage onto that single target. So it's a good active skill. There's AoE, there's decent single target damage, and it's a fairly high number. The reason I'm guessing he won't be an expedition commander is just reading his active skill, and I've already seen his other skills, so I know what they look like. It's a bit too overpowered to be someone at like an Ethelflaed level. Maybe a Season of Conquest expedition commander, maybe a Lost Canyon commander. They could be possible, but as we read through his skills, I don't think he's going to be an expedition commander in the early stages of the game. I pretty much can guarantee he won't be KVK 1, he won't be KVK 2, he obviously will be in KVK 3, but from then onwards, he may be an expedition commander, or he may be something like a Lost Canyon commander, because he just looks too strong to be an expedition commander in the beginning of the game. Moving on to his second skill though, Ride the Whale Road. This commander's infantry units gains 40% defense, which is very nice, and 10% march speed. I think that's a very valid and fair amount. And if this commander's troop contains only infantry units, it's going to take 10% less normal damage. That's good against Smite. I mean, those are some really, really good stats for a second skill that's quite high in stats. It's higher than what we usually see, or it's around what we would see. 40% defense is very nice. I mean, that's a lot of defense. Very, very tanky there. The march speed, bit lackluster for infantry. We usually see like 20 to 30% sometimes, but I think it makes up for it through that normal damage. So the normal damage there on Ragnar, really, really amazing amount, and I think it is a very good number. So he's going to have a lot of stats in his kit based off just this second skill. Moving on to his third skill, Sea King. If this commander is in a field troop or on the open field, whenever it launches or is hit with a basic attack, it has a 30% chance to drain the enemy's attack by 20% and march speed by 30% for 2 seconds. This is quite interesting. He's first of all going to need to be a field troop, so he can't be rallying, he can't be garrisoned, and he can't be in a resource node. So those 3 things have to be considered. And then whenever he launches basic attack, he's got a chance to drain the enemy's attack. Now, I don't know if this means it's going to stack, because when we look at drain, it says for the duration of the effect, it's going to reduce the enemy's attributes. Oh, it's going to increase yours by your own the same amount. So it's not going to stack. You're not going to be able to, for example, take your opponent's attack down to 0%. But the amount of attack you take, so since you're taking 20% attack and 30% march speed, he's going to get 20% attack and 30% march speed. Now, the march speed is fully useless to drain off your opponents, because the second you stop hitting them, it's going to be 2 turns anyways, and you're going to be gone. So the march speed is, well, you're not going to be gone. It's just going to fall off. So the march speed, useless, but the attack drain, pretty nice. The only time I see march speed drain obviously being good is this is pretty much like an instant trigger march speed debuff that seems to be very easy to upkeep since there is no cooldown on this second skill. So if you're chasing someone down, Sea King is nice to have. But in terms of it being a valuable thing, draining the march speed for your own march, I don't think so. It's just mainly to chase down your opponents. It looks good. Other than that, I'm not too sure. So in terms of draining, the attack is nice. I'm sure that he's going to benefit from the free 20% attack. The march speed, not as useful, but it can be useful in a situation where you're hunting down your opponents. Also, I think this is the first time we've seen any commanders with the drain effect, so this is definitely quite a unique thing. Moving on to his fourth skill in Odin's Hall. If he is a field troop, so he can't be rallied, can't be garrisoned, can't be in a resource node, he's going to take 25% less skill damage, good against archers, good against cavs. I mean, not really good against the newer archers, Shajar and Chio. but it's good against the other older archers like Julang Herman, good against obviously Nevsky and Joan. That's a good skill overall. And then every time his troop reaches 70% rage, it's going to gain a bonus 15% to skill damage dealt for 4 seconds. I mean, that is a very good amount there. So that is a decent fourth skill. I mean, you're getting nice skill damage reductions. You're getting a nice skill damage bonus. I mean, it is going to be a relatively powerful fourth skill considering the rest of his skills are really good as well. I think this skill is pretty decent. Moving on to his expertise, Raven's Fury. He's going to deal direct damage to 3 enemy units. By the way, this is just an upgrade to his active skill. The expertise version will deal direct damage to 3 enemy troops, again in a fan-shaped area. The damage factor has increased by 200 to 2,200. And then every additional target will still reduce the damage by 15%. Now, this is one of the higher AoEs we see in terms of 3-target AoEs. I think it's one of, if not the highest AoEs in the game besides the Liu Che in terms of direct number. And in terms of skill damage, it's the highest numbered AoE I think we have. And I might be mistaking that, and that's not really too important, but it is a good AoE. And then the next thing, this is where I think it gets really good. This is why you might see his expertise and think, you can skip it because you're only getting 200 damage factor. Is that worth all the gold heads? This next bit, what's changed here in the last bit, is that all troops hit by this skill will take additional damage every second for the next 2 seconds. Every single, or 3 enemy troops. That's 2 more enemy troops are going to be hitting with it, and that 300 damage is not going to be reduced. They're going to take 600 extra damage factor on top of the AoE damage. So you're looking at around 1,200 guaranteed extra damage there, on top of the additional normal damage factor you're going to gain. I don't fully know how to do the math for how the skill damage works off the top of my head. If I were to chuck a rough number, this is like 1,500 to 1,600 extra damage factor on your opponent. So that is a really, really good amount of extra AoE, and in my opinion, worth it for him, just because all 4 of his skills are relatively strong and almost relatively equal in strength. Some obviously slightly better, but overall they're pretty equal, which in my opinion makes his whole entire expertise a worthy venture from what we can see. Now, in terms of what I think about Ragnar Prime, I think the simple thing is he looks good. I mean, he's got AoE, which everyone wants, obviously. No one really doesn't want AoE. He's got stats. He's got a unique feature through that draining, which we've never seen before. And he's got a really large amount of overall damage and good damage reductions. He looks like a strong commander. I don't think he's going to be ridiculously overpowered. Like, he's not going to be Liu Che or Zhu Lang level, but he looks like he's going to be up there with some of the strongest, maybe within like the top 5 commanders in the game. I would say probably around Herman Prime power is my guess if I had to just chuck one out there. Obviously, he could be stronger when he releases. Obviously, I'm going to do him on the Rise of Kingdoms tester for sure. He looks like a decent all-around good commander. So Ragnar Prime, I think he's going to be quite the boost for infantry. He's definitely going to make me change my opinion on not investing in Scipio, because I thought Ragnar would be an expedition commander. Clearly he isn't. Scipio, once again, seems like a pretty solid investment to pick up. Do I think he's going to be better than someone like Liu Che? I don't think so. Do I think he's going to be a good pairing with Liu Che? I think probably around the same strength as a Scipio Africanus with a Liu Che. Maybe Scipio, well, I think Scipio would still be better, just because Scipio is more tanky and Liu Che needs tankiness. Ragnar seems tanky, but not as tanky as Scipio. So I think that will still be a good pairing, Liu Che with the Ragnar Prime, but I think Liu Che will still have better pairings. I still think Alex will outperform the Ragnar Prime as a pairing with Liu Che, and I think that William Wallace and the 2 other Smite commanders will probably do a little bit better. That's just an assumption, obviously. Ragnar isn't in the game, but in terms of with Scipio Africanus, I think it's going to be Scipio's new best pairing, because you're going to have double AoE again. It's going to definitely outclass Guan. I think that it's going to be time for Guan to go bye-bye. And I think that Ragnar is going to be a good replacement there. So if you have a Scipio and you've probably been thinking, he's losing a bit of value, I don't really know who to pair him with. My Liu Che is with a better commander who's just trading better. This Ragnar looks like a little bit of a saving grace for Scipio. So I'm definitely interested to see how this pairing could work, whether or not Scipio Africanus with Ragnar Prime is meta, or maybe Ragnar Prime is really good with Liu Che, and I am just glossing over that. So there's a chance that when it comes down to it, Ragnar could be really good with Liu Che. I think it's only going to be around average, and I think Scipio with Ragnar looks like it's going to be a ridiculous pairing. Also, going through all of the Ragnar Prime skills, he looks fairly strong in terms of the fact that he's got a lot of damage, he's got a lot of stats, he's got a unique aspect, he's pretty much got a debuff, a passive skill debuff. So I think he's going to be up there with some of the stronger commanders. I think he's going to be a worthy investment. But the question I think I'm going to get asked the most is, where do we think this Ragnar is going to be? How are you going to get Ragnar Prime? And I said at the start of the video, I don't think it's going to be something like an expedition commander. It doesn't really look like he's gonna be there. It looks too strong. I mean, Ragnar just looks better than most commanders in the game right now. I don't see him being given away for free. Now, I would obviously love to be wrong. I just don't see it being a real possibility, especially because if they put an expedition commander that strong in the early game, it'll be ridiculous. I mean, he'll be that powerful that it's a must invest. Ignore every single commander. Just expertise him. Even if you're not an infantry main, just expertise Ragnar. Highly doubt that's going to be a thing. The only time I could see this being a possible expedition commander is if we see it in terms of a Season of Conquest thing, where you get to Season of Conquest and you get access to Ragnar. That, in my opinion, is possible, but I still think unlikely. Because when it comes to making an expedition commander, I don't see why they would make an infantry only. It doesn't really make sense. It's too favoring of one of the 3 main troop types, and it pretty much would make infantry the meta choice for every single beginner. I don't think they'd do that. If I was to expect a expedition commander, I'd expect something such as a leadership commander, integration, whatever. Something more generic, or something that's totally unique and really, really different to anything we've ever seen. Ragnar just looks like a strong commander, so I think he's probably going to be Wheel of Fortune. That's my main guess. He could be Lost Canyon. That's possible. I still just don't think he's going to be a free commander, though. I think he's going to be something you get out of the Wheel of Fortune. Maybe you can get him in terms of they got an event where you get Ragnar Prime for free. That is certainly possible. I'm just not 100% sure where we'd see him. If I had to guess, though, I would say probably in the Wheel of Fortune. I don't think he's going to be in the normal events, so like in terms of Expedition and like even Sunset Canyon or Lost Canyon. I don't think so. Ragnar Prime doesn't look like he's a weak commander in that regard or a commander at that power level. He just looks a little bit too strong. Now, the last question I think that needs to be answered about Ragnar Prime, and this is definitely something that is going to be a bit of a pressing issue across the board. We really thought, I mean, by we, I mean most content creators, most players, not everyone, I'm sure some people had different theories, but many people assume that when it comes down to infantry and archers and cavalry, these really unique commanders, Smite commanders, the Mighty Heal and True Damage commanders, it was pretty much assumed that would be the new meta for those troop types, and pretty much every single commander would be in that direction. Now, I'm not saying Ragnar has fully changed this, but I am saying that he has changed this. That assumption is pretty much now negligible because Ragnar is fully different to what anyone would have expected. It was pretty much almost guaranteed, most people at least thought, that the upcoming infantry commanders would all be Smite. Now, of course, Ragnar is releasing at a weird time. He's an infantry commander, but we're going into the engineering and leadership cycle, so it's definitely a bit weird to see him. But that being said, he is, again, not a Smite commander, which is what you would have expected for infantry. So it's weird to say that maybe at this point, Smite commanders and skill commanders could release side by side, or we might see 3 infantry commanders at once, or we might see something like we just saw this cycle, 2 infantry commanders, and later we get another. That's definitely possible, and I don't know if it's a really good idea. Maybe I'll elaborate on this in another video, just because it would be very confusing. I think if they're going to do 3 infantry commanders, throw them all out at once. But when it comes down to it, maybe we will start seeing more skill commanders for infantry. Maybe when it comes down to archers, Mighty Heal is not the only route. Maybe we will still see skill commanders for archers. I certainly see that being quite possible. So just keep a hold on everything for now in terms of theories we had about Commander releasing. Anything I've said before about Mighty Heal and True Damage being the only route for future archers, or at least my personal predictions, and I made that video not that long ago, or anything about infantry and how people have said that Smite seems to be the new route for infantry, maybe I'd hold a few doubts on that as well. I still think Smite and Mighty Heal would probably be the main aspects of infantry and archers respectively, but I don't know if it's going to remain as the only thing, which is what some players, including myself, did think. So I think Ragnar's throwing a bit of a spanner into the works there. He doesn't look like he's going to be a Smite commander. He's not a Smite commander, so he's kind of suggesting that maybe not all infantry will be Smite. Granted, we have seen 2 infantry cycles in a row now with Smite commanders, and then Ragnar has just been thrown in there out of nowhere, which is why a lot of people did assume that he was probably going to be an Expedition, Lost Canyon, or Sunset Canyon commander, something like that, but it doesn't really look like the case. Maybe he does just appear in some weird event. I doubt it, though. I still think he's probably just going to be a wheel commander. Maybe we see something similar with archers as well. The next cycle coming, we get a new archer commander who's a skill damage commander. It is certainly possible. Maybe that is the new route we go. It's a bit up in the air for me to say that for sure, and maybe we see the same thing with cavalry. I genuinely did think, though, that we were going to at least start to see a situation where infantry only get smite damage, archers only get mighty heal and true damage, and then cavalry will get either stick with the skill damage or they will get something completely different. That's what I thought was going to happen, but it seems like Ragnar is definitely not going to be continuing that trend for infantry. Granted, he isn't in a normal release cycle, or at least a normal release time. So it's really interesting, really strange, and I definitely am interested to see where the future commander releases are going to go. We start seeing 3 for each troop type each year. We will start to see 2 of a main type, for example, 2 infantry with smite or 2 archers with smite and then 1 with skill damage. Or will it just be this is kind of a one-off event that has just been thrown in there? Maybe because of anniversary, maybe there's a new civilization, whatever it may be. I'm not 100% sure. I thought Ragnar was going to be an anniversary commander in the expedition and he was going to stay there, but definitely that does not seem like the case. So I'm interested to see A, how good Ragnar is. He looks strong. I don't think he's going to be bad. And B, what it means for future releases, both for infantry, archers, and even for cavalry. Now, if you enjoyed today's video, I just want to ask you guys for a very small favor. Do consider pushing like on the video. I tried to get this out pretty much the second I found out about Ragnar's skills, which was probably around an hour after they did come out. So if you like this fast-paced, instantly released content pretty much the second anything drops about commanders, do consider smashing a like on the video. It tells me you guys want to see more of this, and it also does help support the channel. So giving a like, I really do appreciate it, and it really does help me out. Now I just want to say thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.